All right, let's get to this.
This is fine. I'm okay with the events that are unfolding currently.
How you doing, everybody? Andrew Scott, and you, of course, are at the VO Booth Camp. So there's a lot of stuff going on right now. I'm sure that I don't need to tell you that. And it's been a bit of a minute since I've made a regular boot camp video. So sorry about that. Number one is I'm waiting on a microphone to review, and I'll get to that at some point in the future because they keep telling me it's going to be here. But anyhow, so many things are going on in the VO world and in the world in general. And I'm not going to go into a lot of this in depth. I'm going to actually try to start making shorter videos for you, okay? I promise. But by way of what's happening, let me run down the list. AI is already pushing into the jobs market, both in the regular world and certainly in the VO world. Generally speaking, job opportunities and gig opportunities in the VO world seem to be trending downwards. I had reason to get back on a couple of the pay-to-play sites that I use, and I'm noticing that in the last year, the opportunities that are available, not just to me specifically, but to VO overall, do seem to be on the decline. And that seems to be the case for new content creation overall. Obviously, at the height of the pandemic, that's really where content creation topped out, right? Everybody was like, oh, I know what I'll do when I'm stuck in the house. I'll be an influencer, or I'll start a podcast, or, so many other content creation opportunities that might require voiceover. Those things are all starting to trend downwards. And that might hold hand in hand with this next one, which of course is this idea of recession, or I don't know, are we in a recession? The people are arguing about it, and I'm certainly no Jim Cramer trying to, tell you what's going on with the economy. I just know that I'm feeling the pinch. You?
Hey, Wall Street. Don't panic. I'm only crushing your heads. Crush you.
Yeah, probably so. And as the economy goes, so do the job opportunities, especially in the gig economy. And of course, I think the thing that most of you are expecting me to address is Reddit's on fire. Now, I'm not going to go into the whole big hoo-ha about Reddit, what happened, all that. I'll leave that up to you. Definitely just search Google and type in Reddit, and you'll be off and running. The short form is, a lot of us in the moderation world on Reddit, and the user base, but a lot in the moderation world, have decided that Reddit's corporate policies no longer really align with our personal sense of ethics. And so, as of 2 weeks ago, I'm no longer a Reddit moderator. I decided that that's not something that I felt comfortable devoting my time to. But at the end of the day, you do you. So with everything kind of on fire, where does that leave us and what do we do? But I think the thing that I primarily want to say to you as a voiceover practitioner and moreover a voiceover business person is this. It's really time to start diversifying what you do commercially. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you've been following me for any length of time, you know that I've got my finger in about 17 different pies, right? But there's a reason for that and a method to that madness. I'm one of these entrepreneurs that never likes to have all eggs in one basket, because as soon as that basket starts dipping, I'm no longer able to take care of my family. And so I do a lot of different things. I'm a audio editor and an engineer and a producer, and I'm a video editor and a copywriter and a script writer. And, I'm able to do all those things. And I understand that you might not be able to, but there are certain other avenues that you might want to consider to start diversifying what you do business-wise as a voice talent. So the first two here are kind of old school, I'll admit it, okay? We're coming out of the pandemic, and people gathering together is a thing again. And a lot of times, they need somebody to talk to them from a stage, behind a podium, with a microphone. And the first opportunity in that regard is, of course, being an MC.
Can't touch this. You can't touch this.
Master of Ceremonies. If you're like me and you have a performance background, or you're like me and you just don't get scared in front of people and you're able to move a conversation or a read along with some confidence, you're probably halfway to being a Master of Ceremonies. And the other aspect of that holds hands with emceeing is looking into public speaking. Now, again, a lot of you know this about me. I'm a disabled guy. I had a disabling accident back when I was 15 years old. I've done public speaking because certain groups had heard my story and wanted me to come talk to them, either for information, education, or inspiration. But being that I was a performer before, I had no problem getting up and talking to a group of people who were either interested in my life story or were, looking for inspiration in order to get through their own hard times. And one of the interesting things about both those opportunities is quite often they pay really well. Okay, so these next two definitely hold hands with each other. They're in the same ecosystem. And that is looping and walla.
What you talking about, mister?
Now, if you follow me on the Booth to Booth podcast, and the link will be up there and down there, my most recent guest was Morgan Bailey Keaton. And Morgan is a great actor and a singer, but Morgan also runs a loop group. And I'm not going to go into the specifics of what looping and walla are. If you listen to that podcast, you already know, or maybe you know from your own research. And if you don't know, definitely go check out that podcast because you'll learn a lot about it. But those are opportunities for you to stay active with a voiceover community. But something to know about it is that looping and walla, generally speaking, are in-person gigs. So you got to have a loop walla group in your neck of the woods, and you got to be okay with being in a room with a group of people. And honestly, some of you aren't there yet. Some of you are okay with that. That's totally your call. But truth of the matter is, and Morgan actually referenced this in the interview, if you can get in, and it's not inconsequential to find your way into those, but if you can get in, they pay really well. So this last one here is kind of a hybrid approach, and that is consider bringing other people into your studio and recording them as a commercial service. Now, if you've been doing this for a while, you've likely got a collection of gear, a collection of microphones. You've done a lot of the work yourself in order to get things up to professional level, and you might be able to offer those services to somebody else who doesn't have all that gear but has the need to be able to record themselves in a high quality fashion. Now, obviously there's some limitations to being able to offer this, right? You might not want somebody else in your home. You might not want to have to clean the cat box that day before they come over. You might not want somebody in your closet, that smells like old tennis shoes. Those things are all legitimate. But if you get in and get established, there's money to be made in offering your technical services to other people who might want to do their own audiobook or might need a high quality recording of their voice for a presentation for a business pitch, things like that. Those are legitimate ways to make money. Now, they also come with a few other specific restrictions. Having people come into your home and, get a commercial service, there's some tax implications and things like that there. I'm not going to go into it because I don't know enough about it, but do due diligence on your own behalf and consider it. So the last one here is another slightly hybrid approach to making money in the audio or voiceover sphere. As I said earlier in this video, a lot of voiceover opportunities are trending downward due to economic situations or the simple nature of the flux in the gig economy. But one of the things that has definitely survived coming down from a pandemic high is podcasting. Now, I'm not recommending that you start a podcast because I think that's actually kind of an awful idea. As a podcaster myself, now's not the time. because the market's really saturated. But podcasts have weathered the financial downturns and the come down from the high of pandemic levels pretty well. There are still plenty of podcasts. Now, one of these things that when a podcast grows, when it gets to something like 5,000 downloads per episode, right? That puts them easily in the top half of all podcasts by way of existing. Okay, they've survived. They're still there. And podcasts with that level of download generally want to start taking that next step. And often that next step is a twofold thing. Number one, they want to sharpen up how they sound by way of production. They want clearer sound. Their message is already attracting attention. They already got followers. But now they want to have a better sound to their podcast, with a higher polish on it. And at the same time, if you're doing a podcast that gets 5,000 or more downloads per episode, you're suddenly, or maybe not so suddenly, really acutely aware of just how much work podcasting is. And even if it's a monthly, a lot of people do not have the time to devote to the research, to the production, to all the other finities that go into a successful podcast. But they've now built up this audience. And so a lot of podcasts are starting to outsource their editing. And if you've done an audiobook or three, you know how to edit a podcast. There are some specifics and special circumstances, but for the most part, it's pretty much the same. And while I've seen content creation gig opportunities go down recently, on many boards and services that I'm on, I'm seeing a consistent level of outcall for outsourced podcast editing. So it's a consideration. So to loop back around to the thing that I thought really was one of the most significant topics of the day, and that is, where do you find community now? If Reddit's going to be a pile of ashes at some point in the near future, and I don't know if that's the case, and I'm not insinuating that it is, but there's Reddit flight happening, no question. Where do you go for community? What are your options right now to stay visible and viable in the VO sphere? Well, as much as I might hate it, it might be time to lean back a little bit harder into social media. Things like Instagram and Twitter, but things like TikTok. And we've got some other players coming online right now that are offering a different style of social media. Things like Mastodon.
I'm Dan Brown here with Troy Sanders of Mastodon, and as a member of Mastodon, he is an expert on all things Macedonian, so he's about to school you on the Mastodon. You ready?
Are you aware that the Mastodon was the heaviest thing to walk this earth, even heavier than Zeppelin 2?
Or, Blue Sky, which is coming online. You might want to investigate those, because the one thing that I do see is that the VO community on social media platforms is still thriving, and there's still opportunities for both visibility and hiring happening on social media. And now this might be an opinion that gets me side-eyed, but might be time to look back into Facebook. People can say, okay, boomer, all they want at me as far as Facebook goes. The truth of the matter is it's not going anywhere. It's not necessarily growing, but it's not really declining all that much. Yes, there's a generational split on who uses it and who doesn't. But if you're looking for community and you're looking for a group of people to join on a platform that allows for good quality discourse, Facebook still fits the bill. It still does what it claims it's supposed to be doing. Ethics aside, you make the decision on where to be. But you can't make a decision on where to be if there's no places to be. But, of course, where I am most frequently seen and interacted with is on Discord. And there is absolutely no shortage of voiceover communities on Discord. It is a thriving and vibrant world of VO on Discord, with many different educators and many different groups of people who aren't even tied to an educator or a YouTube personality like I am. That is a great place to go, and that is a great place to be, because in my opinion, the greatest thing that it offers is a signal-to-noise ratio by way of communication and information that's actually in your favor. And not only in your favor, it's much more in your control. But now the last thing to mention by way of community is something that people might drag me for, or they might find controversial. And that is, it might be time to consider trying to join a union. Now, of course, here in the United States, that's SAG-AFTRA. If you're up in Canada, number one, please get me some Timbits. And number two, of course, that is ACTRA. The UK, cheers people, that of course is equity. And if you're in the EU, you have the ability to look into EuroFIA or EuroFIA. Obviously, all unions are specific to the country and the region that they're in, and there's definitely a bunch of hoops to go through in order to join. But the one thing that unions provide, aside from certain protections, is a built-in community of both like-minded people and professional resources that can help you grow skill bases, sharpen your practice, and find work. And say what you want about unions and being a member of a union, but right now, frankly, in this environment, in this economy, all options have to be on the table. And you would do yourself a disservice to rule any one thing out simply because you don't like it or don't think it's your thing. Right now, we're all trying to find our way in this weird new world. I mean, seriously, did you envision any of this a year ago? Did you envision any of us arguing over what's real by way of recorded audio or video or even text? And that's just talking about AI. I'm interested to know what you think. If you've got any opinions or if you want to hear my opinions on any of these changes in greater detail, hit me in the comments down below. Do join us on the Booth Camp Discord server. And by the way, 67% of you actually aren't subscribed, even though you watch my content regularly. Now, I'm not upset about that, but honestly, if you want to keep me doing this content in the same way that I want to keep doing this content, do me a favor and honor me with that subscription. It would really help me out, and it's totally free. But yeah, everything's on fire. Don't get burned. Until next time, everybody, I'm Andrew Scott, and you've been at the VO Booth Camp. See you later, everybody. Bye-bye.